What surprises people is that there are things judges almost never consider when deciding support. For example, they don't look at who bought the child's last birthday gift. It's just not a factor. A lot of parents come into family court and they have misconceptions about how child support works. Some think it's just about who the better parent is, and others think that if they buy extra clothes and school supplies or pay for activities, that will reduce their child support. And then there are people who believe that the judge will just listen to their story and make a fair decision because they just feel for the person. And the truth is that child support is primarily driven by numbers, documentation, and the state guidelines in Wisconsin. And it's not by who tells the best story in court. Now, I've practiced family law here for 20 years, and I've seen a lot of misunderstandings come up over and over again. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly how judges decide child support, what factors really matter, and what you should do if you want your order to reflect your true situation. Factor number one, income, 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 income. Judges don't just look at your paycheck, they look at the full picture. And what that means is they're looking at your wages and your salary. That's your normal income that you get from your job, your paycheck that you get weekly or bi-weekly, some people every month. But they're also going to take a look at your overtime, bonuses, and commissions. And if you earn it regularly, it counts. It counts towards your child support. They're going to look at any side hustles you have. DoorDash, Uber, freelance work, that's all income. If you have investment or rental properties that brings in money, that can be considered income. I've seen a lot of people try to hide their income by working under the table, or they don't report the cash. And let me be clear, judges are experienced. If your lifestyle doesn't match your reported income, they notice that. And the other parent does too, and they will dig into your financials, and that can really hurt your credibility. So my tip for you is don't guess at your income. Bring your recent tax returns, your pay stubs, your proof of any other earnings. And the more accurate your numbers are, the fairer the calculation will be, and you'll just appear more credible before the court. Factor number two is about parenting time, and generally what we're talking about here is overnight periods of placement. When we're looking at the second factor, and we call it parenting time, and specifically on those number of overnights that you have with your child, you want to count those up. You want to tell the judge what that is. The judge is going to look at your schedule to determine how much direct care each parent provides, how many overnights, right? And we're generally looking at every 14 days, a 2-week cycle. Here's why it matters. When your child is with you overnight, you're covering the cost of food and utilities, housing, and daily needs. And that reduces what you owe in support because you're already providing for the child during that time. For example, let's say you only had every other weekend at first, and that's about 4 overnights a month, right? But now you've moved closer, you're more involved, and you've shifted to what we call 50-50 placement. And that change can dramatically reduce your child support obligation because you're sharing in the expenses. So you always want to document your actual parenting time, and if you're consistently taking on more overnights than what the court order says, keep a record of that. Judges can adjust support based on the reality of the schedule, not just what's on the paper. Now the tip though is bring a motion to change your placement order so that you can get that in place and lock in that schedule is really your best bet. Factor number 3 is child expenses. So what are the expenses for your child? The court can look at that. Custody judges consider the child's actual needs, and this can go beyond just income and time like we've talked about, and it can be specific costs related to this child. Things like health insurance premium. If one parent is covering the health insurance premium, what is the cost of that? What about daycare or after school care? Medical expenses that are not covered by insurance can also come up, and things like school supplies and extracurricular activities that cost substantial amounts. Now, let's say you're paying for your child's daycare every week. That expense can be factored into the support calculation, often by reducing the amount that you owe. But you have to bring evidence for that. And the same goes for health insurance. If you're the one carrying the child on your plan, that can get credited into the math. In my opinion, over the 20 years that I've been doing this, the one that's easier to get credited into child support is the health insurance premium and the increased costs that you're paying for that. You have to work a little bit harder with the judges to convince the judge that you should get a reduction in your support for paying the daycare expense. What you want to do is to save receipts and invoices. You want to come to court with that evidence. Too many parents pay out of pocket and they don't track it. They just pay it, they lose sight of it. And if you can't prove the expense, well, the judge doesn't really know what you're paying and the judge cannot consider it. So bring the evidence of the health insurance premium and your daycare expenses. Now, here's the fourth factor. Now, this is a juicy one. It's a big one, guys. It's the state support guidelines. We're here in Wisconsin. Every state has its own child support formula, and judges are required by the statutes to use it. So in Wisconsin, for example, the guidelines are a percentage of gross income, and it starts by looking at the number of children that you have. And the formula says if there's one child, the payor pays 17%. For two children, it's 25% of gross income. For three children, 29%. 4 children, it goes up to 31%, and for 5 or more children, you're looking at 34% of your gross income. Those percentages that I just went through apply to a payor, a person who has placement less than 25% of the time. Now, the percentages are just a starting point, so judges then adjust based on parenting time, health insurance, daycare, and other expenses. This is why people are often shocked at the numbers. They look at it at first like, wow, they expect the judge to just go in and split it down the middle, or go with what feels fair, but judges don't have that flexibility. They first must look at the formula and the guidelines, and they can only make changes if the facts of your case justify it. So the tip for you is run the numbers yourself before you go to court. And if you know what the guideline amount is, you'll have realistic expectations. You know what the guardrails are. And then from there, you can make your various arguments as to why that number is not the right number and why you should be paying less. Number 5, the fifth thing we want to talk about here are special circumstances. Now, special circumstances apply in cases, right? And the guidelines can be strict, and judges do have some discretion in these type of cases where special circumstances arise. For example, let's say a parent is intentionally unemployed, or they're underemployed, like they're making less than what they really should. Judges can impute income, and what that means is they assign you an income based on your earning potential and not what you're actually making at the time. If your child has extraordinary medical or educational needs, the court can adjust support to cover those costs as well. And if one parent has multiple child support obligations from other cases because they have other children, that can also affect the calculation. So for you, what you need to know is you do not want to assume that just quitting your job or cutting your hours will lower your support automatically. Judges can see your actions, ask questions about it, and they can see through that, and they can assign income to you anyways, even if you're not actually making the income. And that's usually a result of poor decisions that the payor, the person paying support, has made. What surprises people is that there are things judges almost never consider when deciding support. For example, they don't look at who bought the child's last birthday gift. It's just not a factor. Who paid for sports fees last year but didn't keep proof? Generally not something that a court looks at. And who feels like they're paying more? Courts don't look like that. They also don't accept arguments of simply, this is unfair to me. They just don't. Judges don't want to hear about fairness between parents. They care about stability for the child. In closing, I want to recap for you the things you need to know. Judges decide child support based on the following things. Number 1 is the income of each parent. Number 2 is the number of periods of placement that you have, in particular overnight periods of placement. And number 3, documented child-related expenses. 4, of course, the big one, the guidelines. And 5 is special circumstances like health needs or if there's underemployment and we need to examine that. So guys, I hope that you find this video really helpful. It helps you prepare for your situation. And if you focus on these factors and you bring evidence to back them up, remember that, bring the evidence, you'll give the judge what they actually need to make a fair decision.